Hello everyone, Michael Benitez is back in for another video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. I wanted to do this for a while, and that is I'm going to try to see if I can explain how in my series the coastal track on Sodor is operated. Now I guess you're wondering what the heck the coastal track is. It's basically that track that goes from, I believe, Knapford to Arthur's branch line in the television series. And I believe it is mentioned in the RWS. I'm not really sure, but in the television series, it's very prominent, especially in seasons 4 and seasons 5. So today I'll be explaining how that line was created and how it affected the Flying Kipper. Now, as all of you are aware, the Flying Kipper is Henry's special train. It's a fish train he takes from Knapford to Manchester. And today I'll be explaining some couple of things that no one probably ever mentioned up, even in Unlucky Tug's map video. And I hope this will clear up how things will look like in my series. Now, the first time we see the Flying Kipper is in, well, of course, the Flying Kipper, the episode everybody loves, the episode from Season 1 where Henry had his first major accident. Now, in this episode, we see the Flying Kipper is traveling from Knapford Harbor through the main line where it crashes. However, in later seasons, we don't really see the main line that often. In fact, in Season 4, we see the Flying Kipper traveling through the coastal track before arriving at Wellsworth. Now, here's the thing. Why is the Flying Kipper not traveling on the main line as it was in Season 1 from Knapford Harbor? Well, I think I have an answer to that, and that is in the episode Something in the Air. Listen to this line.
"What route is Henry taking tonight?" asked the driver. "The coastal run, it's the quickest."
And with that, we get our major hint as to why the Flying Kipper is not on the main line like it was in Season 1. The coastal run is the quickest. Now, here's my backstory on how this came to be. As we know, around the time Henry took the Flying Kipper in 1935, the NWR didn't have that much engines, but as time went on, more engines came, and with that, more work came. My theory is that around the time of Season 4, when it takes place, the Fat Controller decided to run overnight trains, and he was very worried that the Flying Kipper, though it may be a important train, it might block mainline trains going to Knapford or other places along the main line. And to also help with better traffic on the coast side of Sodor, around that area, he decided to build a coastal track that will run from Knapford Harbor to Brendam Docks and then connect to Arthur's branch line. Now, this is how I think it went. In the Season 4 episode Special Attraction, Toby travels to a seaside village to become a special attraction. However, he then finds out that they have no room for him, and so he unfortunately leaves. But that's not important. The important thing is that it's near the seaside. Now, for the name of the station, I decided to just call it Seaside for the moment. It might just be called Seaside for now. But here's my theory. In the episode, we see Toby traveling from Gordon's Hill and then along the coastal track, the same track that Henry would travel on in Fish. Now, I guess you're all wondering that he probably took Wellsworth to get there, but to me, it's not correct, and this is why. In the episode Fish, Henry is clearly seen traveling on the same track that Toby would go on to the seaside station. However, he's going in the opposite direction towards where I presume to be is Brendam. Now, how did Toby go to Wellsworth and then along this track when, in Fish, Henry went along this track first and then went to Wellsworth? It just doesn't add up. However, if you take into account, I think it's pretty easy to solve this mystery. This section of track is known as Tidmouth Beach, I think, and it's in the Tidmouth area along Duck's branch line. And with that, we get our first major hint. Toby did not go through Wellsworth. He instead went through Tidmouth, which we know is before Wellsworth, which is before Gordon's Hill. So here's my theory as to why both engines are going in the opposite direction towards Wellsworth. In Special Attraction, Toby goes along Gordon's Hill through Tidmouth and then turns around in the opposite direction from Knapford Harbor, going towards Brendam, and stops at the seaside station. In Henry, and Fish, the Flying Kipper goes from Knapford Harbor along this track to Wellswood Station. Now, this is where the coastal track comes into play. The coastal track was built to be a much quicker way for the Flying Kipper to get to presumably the other side of the island. And this is where another thing comes into play. You know how in the CGI series where the Flying Kipper now departs from Brendam Docks instead of Knapford Harbor? Well, to me, I don't really think it actually departs from Brendam Docks. It departs from Knapford but stops at Brendam Docks, and here's why. My theory is that when the coastal track was founded, it proved to be a much quicker way to get fish from both Tidmouth Harbor and Brendam Docks. And this is why I think the Flying Kipper stops at both Tidmouth Harbor and Brendam Docks. This is why in Fish, Henry goes from Tidmouth Beach towards Wellsworth. He's not actually on the Wellsworth branch line yet. He's actually on the coastal track, and that will lead up to Season 5. However, in Season 5, we do know that he suffered a major accident where he derailed on the coastal track, where the high tides damaged the rails, and he unfortunately went to the sea. So far, he is not having a good career with the Flying Kipper. And this is where my history comes into play. After what happened in Something in the Air, Sir Tom had then decided that Henry was just too dangerous to be on the coastal track. However, around that time, the Flying Kipper was still proven to be very useful on that part of the line. And so, Sir Tom had then decided to switch things up a little bit. Flying Kipper would still start in Knapford Harbor. However, Henry would not take the train until it would reach Brendam Docks. I presume that mid-sized engines like Edward, James, and the Scottish Twins, they would take the train along the coastal track, where they would stop at Tidmouth Harbor and Brendam Docks to pick up more fish. And then at Brendam Docks, Henry would take the train going from Brendam Docks along Edward's branch line, and then he would stop at Wellsworth. Then the Flying Kipper would stop at Wellswood Station for a banker, presumably either Edward or any other engine who would be there at the time, to bank the train up Gordon's Hill, and then Henry would continue his way onto, presumably, Barrow-in-Furness, where a diesel would take the train onto Manchester. And that is how I think the Flying Kipper runs, well, presumably in my universe at least. So it's several engines take the train, but Henry's the most famous with it. This is also when the cement works was created, so the coastal track served as a way for the cement works to get their cement to other parts of Sodor. And that's why we don't see Fergus that often, because it's an isolated part of the coastal run. I guess you're wondering, how the heck is this part of the coastal run? Well, in Salty's Stormy Tale, Salty is taking Fergus back to the cement works along the coastal track. So I presume that wherever the cement works is, it's right before Brendam Docks, where Henry would be waiting for the Flying Kipper to arrive, so he would take it onwards. In simpler tense, the coastal track is just a big coastal main line that connects to Arthur's branch line, where fish can be collected, taken to Knapford Harbor, or shipped all over that part of Sodor, and then it will be put on the Flying Kipper, where it will go to Tidmouth Harbor, Brendam Docks, and then on to Barrow-in-Furness, and then to Manchester. And so, in my opinion, this is also, in my series, this is also the place where the Dockside Railway works, which is a big railway which focuses on the coastal and docks of Sodor. I'll explain that more in my series. And so, yeah, I guess this is just a big coastal main line on Sodor where trains go on the coast side, where they deliver either passengers, freight, or even fish, or even mail sometimes. So here's how it would go. The Flying Kipper starts in Knapford Harbor, travels along the coastal track, however, it goes inland after going through the Tidmouth region and stopping at Tidmouth Harbor. Then it will stop at Brendam Docks to pick up more fish, and the engine on that train would then be taken over by Henry. And then Henry would take the train along Edward's branch line to Gordon's Hill, where it would presumably get banked up the hill, then onward to Barrow-in-Furness or Vicarstown, and then it would take the train on to Manchester via diesel, because as we know around this time, diesels were now taking over on the mainland. So, here's how I think the coastal bypass is overall. It starts at Knapford Harbor, goes along the coast to the Tidmouth region, and then past Cement Works, and then inland towards Brendam Docks. Well, in that case, there are two ways. There's one track that goes straight on across the coast to Normanby, and there's a track that just goes to Brendam Docks. And so, basically, it's just another main line along the coastline of Sodor. I think this works pretty well. This will explain why Brendam Docks is the only place we now see the Flying Kipper from I believe season 6 onwards. So let me know in your opinion about the coastal track, the coastal bypass, whatever you want to call it. Do you think that it's a secondary main line that just runs alongside the coast in Ormby, or do you think it's just some random track that's just there for season 5 purposes? Or then again, it was seen again in later seasons, but still. So let me know down in your comments below about my theory onto what the coastal track is and that little station. At that point, I'm just calling it Seaside. I'm not putting it directly on Arthur's branch line. I'm just putting it somewhere between the track to Brendam Docks and the Titmouth region. So yeah, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to do more videos onto where I think locations are on Sodor. Have a nice day.